Today we have a video game console straight from Amazon this time that has around 120,000 retro games built into it. A plug-and-play system from JMachen. They did send this to me for purpose of review, and I have reviewed quite a few of these devices in the past, and some have been better than others, but the one thing that has been fairly common with all these kind of setups is the build they use for the games have been fairly sloppy, a ROM dump. Now, is this a ROM dump like most others? How does it perform with higher-end consoles? What is the presentation? Is it sloppy? Well, let's begin with the basics here. So, I noticed on Amazon they have a few different builds, and this is one of the higher storage capacity ones with a 512 gigabyte micro SD card containing the games via an Emulec setup. The build comes with a TX3 Android TV box, two really crappy controllers, an HDMI cable, and a power cable plus a remote, all contained in a smelly-ass carrying case. The case has a really horrible chemical smell that seems to be a combination of industrial waste and cigarette ash. Probably not good for your health to be touching or smelling this thing. But okay, the other components we got here. So I'll show the TX3 specs on the screen, but this is a fairly basic Android box from a few years ago that can be found for around $40 to $60 depending on the configuration. The micro SD card that they sent with this thing is a Samsung Evo Plus 512 gigabyte, which if it's a legit one is around $60 to $70 depending on where you find it. The controllers are your typical lightweight 2 for $20 AliExpress special that has no brand because no one wants to claim this thing with how bad it is. Now, after having used this controller for a couple hours, I wanted to burn them. The buttons are stiff, spaced poorly. The D-pad, it's not in the slightest usable for any retro game. It's good for like navigating a menu up and down and nothing else. You got loose analog sticks and just an overall poor build. But the good thing is you can use whatever controllers you want with Emulec. You don't have to use what they sold you with this thing. But yeah, they're garbage. Just get rid of them. Now, if you look at the value of the components here, you're essentially spending double for the setup they included with the, near 120,000 games. So you're paying extra for those games. It's a convenience factor, I guess, right? Sold your boy up. Now, you do have over 70 systems included in this build. It's around 75. They do make note that there will be around 20,000 non-US ROMs on here that could be considered duplicates. Multiple regions type of thing, which, fine, that's not a problem, but are they sorted properly? Well, no. And I find this note on the listing probably a way to try to justify previous criticisms that people like myself have had with ROM dump builds. There are some games that have duplicates for pages, dozens of the same game. That's not multi-language and region. That's sloppiness. Again, the biggest area that you will see, this type of thing on is going to be MAME and arcade, collections. But it's actually on any system to some degree. If the system has more than like a dozen games, if it has hundreds or thousands of games listed, you're going to have tons of duplicates. Now, the one good thing I noticed was this time the hacks, game hacks, they were separated into their own categories. But odd. When I look through the list, it actually doesn't look like a curated list of hacks, just more duplicates of games that are already listed in the main system selection. Well, you will find a few hacks, but not many, and it's just not organized properly at all. Another thing I noticed is Famicom this time is separate from NES, so that should be a good thing. No Famicom games listed in the NES selections this time. Nah, of course there is. There's a ton of Famicom games in the NES selection. And then in Famicom, there's duplicates that just shouldn't be in there, in my opinion. How many regions of Famicom games are there? So probably a lot of this crap is Chinese bootleg versions or just multiple ROM dumps from different sources fluffing up the numbers. It goes well beyond multi-region and language. There's just multiple ROM dumps and versions inflating this game list. So overall, the build is a tiny bit better as far as presentation goes than maybe some previous stuff I've looked at, but it still goes into the category of sloppy ROM dump for me. But how do the systems perform? Now, with so many games, obviously, I cannot test everything. I have to keep it narrowed down to keep the video short enough for people to get a good idea of what to expect without wasting too much time. So I look for systems of interest that have had issues on similar or cheaper devices in the past, and just load up a random game or two to get an idea. I'm not targeting anything specifically, I'm just selecting a game and going. Now, of course, all your retro 8 and 16-bit stuff like usual shouldn't have any issues. All the handheld stuff for the most part. Now, the more demanding stuff is what I'm interested in seeing. So let's run through this. Nintendo 64, just like usual, is hit and miss. Graphics glitches on some games, slowdown or sound problems on others. Just not many games will perform 100% for Nintendo 64. This game that I'm showing in the video footage, what the hell is going on with this? Like, holy crap, not playable, not playable. Now, 3DO is always a welcome surprise, but surprise, motherfucker, graphics glitches. I don't know about you, but when I play Samurai Showdown, I like to see the backgrounds, right? It's kind of part of the atmosphere and a big part of the game. Now, Atomic Wave, that's next one I tested it. It seems to perform mostly well, but I noticed some games, part of the screen will be cut off. Not a huge issue, but it may cut into some things that you might want to see, like energy, bars, that kind of thing. So you may have to dig into emulator settings on this one to, fix it up. But not everything I tested on that seemed to have that problem. Now, Sega Saturn, some games seem to play okay, like no graphics glitches or sound problems, but they did run slow, a little bit slower than they should, and it was noticeable to me. So even if you find a game in Saturn, which there isn't very many, if you find a game that seems to play okay, it probably plays slower than how it's supposed to. Now, Sega's Dreamcast is another hit and miss system here. Some games play okay, some will seem fine, but have a minor annoyance like messed up audio or a little graphics glitch here and there. Just not perfect. Now, PS1 can run on a potato or even your mom's Vibe fairly easily, so no issues here with PS1. But no, you do not have PS2 or PS3, PS4, PS5. You got nothing like that on here. But we do have PSP. And this is another one that could be a little hit and miss. Some games play well, but will have minor problems with audio or slight slowdown or graphics glitches. So there you go. A cheap Android box with even cheaper controllers with a buttload of ROMs dumped on it. So it has some issues with both performance and presentation. Some things you may be able to put some time into and fix and clean up. But the amount of work you'd have to put into it just doesn't make sense to me. There's a lot here you can actually play that's just fine, but I think it would be more appealing if these things were put together with actual care. Obviously, these are products the company has no business selling with the Soulja Boy to build, but people still buy them. People see thousands of retro games listed on a plug and play, and their interest is piqued. Maybe they look into how to build a setup themselves, start looking up tutorial videos, or they figure they'll just pay a premium to have it already ready to go. But if you have the time to learn, or look around in the community of people who create builds, you'll wind up having a build that's way more polished and you didn't really have to spend as much. But hey, convenience for a premium for some, I guess. And I don't hate on anyone that goes that route, but it is getting tiresome seeing the same lazy crap being sold to people over and over again. These little Android cheap boxes with a ROM dump. These Pandora boxes with the ROM dump. Like, I mean, put a little more effort into it, and maybe I'll, be able to, give a little bit more of a positive impression or review on these things. But hey, regardless what I got to say, I still know people will be interested in this thing. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Really do appreciate every single one of you guys. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.